Alrighty, it is Friday night, and that means it is time for Green Oaks Gaming to do reviews. So I am Joe, I have Tammy here with me, and we have a ton of stuff there on the table. So a couple of quick call outs. First, you can see the watermark. We've had some IT issues, so we're using a loaner camera. And the software is not quite compatible, so we are just using this for an interim. I do apologize. I hope it's not too distracting, but once we get that solved, then that watermark won't be popping around and popping on and off. But today we are going to be reviewing some products all designed for miniatures, because as I am a big fan of not only tabletop gaming, but the miniature hobby and how that ties into tabletop gaming. I tend to do a lot with basing, and Tammy, you've started to do a lot more with basing as well. So basing is something that really is important for not only creating dioramas and interesting scenes, but also for elevating your miniatures on the tabletop game. So we've got a whole ton of products here on the table. We're going to start diving into them, talking about them, looking at some examples, and even putting some on the miniatures themselves live on the stream tonight. So I know it looks kind of crazy. We're going to start pulling some things aside so we can start talking about different applications. And I'm just going to move some stuff out of the way. I just wanted a big, huge impact when we went live, something that looked just absolutely monumental and massive in scale and scope and color and texture. So I hope we accomplish that. So as I move some different things out here, I'm going to real quick just pull some miniatures that we will talk about and show on stream. And then we'll start getting into the products. So some of the miniatures that we'll talk about are incomplete. So we have got a Reaper Bones USA Archway. We have got Dantrag of Heimdall.
So the Bones USA Archway is called Enter If You Dare.
Enter If You Dare. We have a Bones, this is an older Bones Orc that has just been based with Sculpey. We have a dragon that has been based and dry brushed with dirt and sand. And then this is a completed archway that we'll talk about a little bit as we talk about some of the products. But this one here, you can see all complete, how fantastic it looks with touches and elements of foliage on it. So what a difference from an incomplete to a complete. So this is why we want to talk about basing, because the elevation it provides is just absolutely stunning, especially when you get a miniature on there.
And those are the exact same archway.
Exact same archways. So where do we want to start? Do we want to start with static grass, or?
Let's start with the Amazon kit.
All right.
So this is actually called, it's from Stonehaven Miniatures, and this is a set of 5 basin scenery blocks. So this, to me, I came across it scrolling through looking at different products one day. You get all of this for $21.99.
And I know you said 5, but we actually received 6.
I think they duplicated this one.
It's possible. It is possible. So these are static grass. Now, with static grass, I've used it for a long time. One of the big kind of tools that I never had until I ordered this kit was the static grass dispenser. So this is basically just a shaker. You can see it's got a screen top And process-wise, you can see we've got still a little bit of static grass in there, and that is pulled from the dead foliage bag, but just a little touch of that static grass that we've put in here. Let's go ahead and check it out on a card and talk about static grass. So static grass is really just small fibrous particles or particulates that, when, like the name says, they interact with static, they tend to stand up on edge, thus looking like grass for your miniature. Pretty clever naming, isn't it? Static grass. So when you get this onto a miniature's basing, it begins to look like grass. And the various colors give you all different types of effects. So you can see this is a dead grass. This is what you're going to have on a late summer day, a field. If you're making a diorama, think of an old overgrown fall scene. What did you say? A thaw?
No, a fall.
Oh, a fall.
Definitely fall.
Now you get into some of the brighter greens. You're going to be more in spring, into summer,
Or early spring.
and then, yeah, height of summer. And then there are even snow-covered ones so that it looks like grass that is covered with snow. So static grass, it comes in a few different lengths, and based on the lengths, it can have different impacts, but the standard length, I believe, is 3 millimeter?
2 millimeter is what these are.
2 millimeter, pretty standard, pretty standard. And you can see just the very small little bits of fiber. Now, there are ways that after you sprinkle this onto your diorama or the miniature basing, if you get a static charge, it will pull the static grass up and make it stand more upright. But I've found that you can achieve the same effect just by standing the miniature upside down and giving it a little bit of a shake, and maybe even just lightly blowing onto it to help it stand up a little bit more. But it works really well, and again, the easiest way to do this is when you have a miniature that you want to pop some static grass on.
I can read this application. It's a pretty good description.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. So for the static grass, to apply it to your miniature, simply paint a 1-to-1 mixture of water and white glue on the areas which you would like to add your grass to. Dip your base directly into the static grass or sprinkle it on top of it, or use tweezers to place the grass where you want it. You gently blow on the base to remove the excess grass, and it gives it a more natural windblown look, and then you allow it to dry before use. Now if you're doing the snow, they say to take that and mix it with water to moisten it. You scoop it onto your miniature base, and using a paintbrush, you smooth the snow into the shape that you want it to be. Now this, they say, takes about 3 hours to dry.
And that's primarily because it's going to be wet. It's going to be saturated with that water.
And some of these, I mean, some of the applications they show is like, with the snow, you can actually put footprints in there, or you can, I mean, you have a little bit more leeway to do stuff. Not that you couldn't do it with the grass pieces, but it's going to be more impactful in the snow.
So process-wise there, I just put a 50-50 white glue and water onto some areas on the base, and then I am just going to sprinkle the static grass. Now I'm doing this, normally I have a sheet that I put down, just a plastic sheet to collect the excess so I can recycle and reuse. But you can see I just use the shaker, shake it on. I put a ton of it on there, more than I need, and it looks absolutely covered. But then as I go through and I will shake the excess off, and then like I said, I hold it upright or upside down and just gently blow on it. When I have this complete, you can see the static grass stays on that miniature right where I had that white glue. And this one's hard to see because it's this fall color on brown. But as I build up additional layers, because I don't have just one color that I'll put on a miniature, I'll actually put on some other colors so that I build up more and more color onto the miniature as it's
to make it look a little more realistic.
right, as it's being done. So super easy to use. If you were to, let's say, just use the pinching process where you just, and you can do this with tweezers, whatever the case may be. Let's grab a little bit more of
Here, I'll get some of these out of the way.
the white, ooh, a little bit more of the white glue and water mix. We're going to pop a little bit in here. And I'm just doing a little bit because this is the brighter green color. But I think process-wise, it's going to look really good to have a little bit of that mixed in. Just a very little bit mixed in with that dead foliage color. Same process. I'm just going to shake out the excess. I do just a little blow to get it to stand upright. And there we have a pop of color, green grass color on the miniature. And as you look and see, the more you layer in, you can even mix these in the shaker to have variants of color, the more realistic that basing is going to look. Again, this is just a real quick,
Give you a view of
give a quick view of what it looks like and what it does. But static grass, an absolute fantastic way to quickly add in details on your miniatures and your dioramas.
And I've got to say, so this size of a package, I have seen static grass a lot of places, and when I ordered it, I expected more this size. I don't know if they can see that.
No.
I expected that size or smaller for 21 bucks. I figured that was still a decent deal. So when you're looking at how much you have here, I mean, that is a whole lot of static grass that you can use.
And especially when you saw how very little we ended up using on that miniature. I mean, if we go through and pop that cap back open, I mean, I've recycled quite a bit of it, not every speck of it yet. I've still got a lot to pick up off the mat, but I mean, we barely used any at all. So a bag like that is going to last a long time, or be able to do some massive diorama covering. So very cool, very exciting.
So definitely this one to me is a fantastic value. About the best that I've seen. And there again, that was Stonehaven Miniatures, and it runs $21.99 on Amazon.
Yeah, so for 22 bucks, the amount that you get absolutely floors me. I was very nervous at first, just really thinking that it was not going to be that much, that it was not going to be as good a shades as it turned out to be. I thought that there was no way it was going to really be as good as it was, but man, I give that a 5-star every day, all day.
Oh, absolutely.
Having the variation of colors alone. I mean, when I was buying static grass, I was buying a large jar of it for 10 bucks, and it's one solid color. And yeah, I never got through it, but
I don't think it was ever that much though.
To be able to have this many different shades to use and blend in together and really tie in is just absolutely fantastic. So yeah, 5 colors. Did it include the shaker?
Yes.
It did include the shaker. So yeah, for 22 bucks, 5 colors, plenty of material. The shaker, yeah, definitely a 5-star. Great job.
This one this would be one of my highest recommendations, without a doubt.
And that primarily is what I wanted to kind of rate and review on the show today. But we figured that while we're doing basing, we'll go ahead and talk about some other products and just talk about basing in and of itself. So I figure next we'll go on flocking.
Yeah.
So flocking is a small particulate, and this small particulate is made generally of foam. And this is just small. Well, you can get this in multiple sizes, all different types of particulate sizes. So this is the finest material that I have here. And you can see it's all just small little particulates, and they are in kind of a overall an olive color, an olive tone. But there are little bits of yellow and brown and 2 different types of green. Just the olive is the most predominant in this tone. Now the same particulates I have with the darker green. So you can see the variations in tonal color. And of course you can get these in many, many, many different colors. So these are designed for also diorama as well as basing materials. And the flocking is a great way to get you, I call it clipped grass. So between moss and mowed lawns, this is going to give you the best kind of short grass for your 28 millimeter figures that you can find, really. So I'm going to show just a quick little example on the dragon base. I'm going to use the same glue here. This is just the 50-50 white glue and water blend that I made up. Pop a little bit of that on there. And this scene here, this is a green dragon, so we're going to have him in a swamp. I am just going to sprinkle a little bit of this on the base where I put the glue. And then any extra I'm going to put in the bag. I'm going to wait just a moment for that to start to adhere. When I shake off the extra, you can see that is just going to stick right where I glued it. And this is great for, again, that short grass as well as moss. So in the archway, you can see the same material was used in between the stones as well as on top of the areas that were moss on the arch. But this type of particulate, because it's so fine and small, it really does a fantastic job of looking like moss. So if you're looking for that mossy type of finish, climbing vines, anything like that, this flock is the way to go. Now, like I said, this style of flocking, you can get into larger and larger particulates, but this is the smallest. You can see how if you were to lay this down first and then move into static grass, you've got multi-tiers of material.
And it looks realistic.
And it really looks realistic. You could use this darker green on your base at first and then put your dead grass on top of this. I've done this with really good effect, and it looks like the new grass coming in over last year's kind of overgrowth. It looks fantastic. It gives fantastic depth into the miniature
and realism,
and really makes it look realistic. So yeah, that's one of the biggest things out there.
Well, and so we've had this one for a while. a big thing with this, a little bit goes a really, really, really long way. So just to kind of give an idea, I did look one up on Amazon. You use Amazon a lot because you get a broad range of choices. But this one that I came across is a 6-pack model, or a 6-pack of grass and
Good colors. You can see
Yes.
those two on the bottom right are the same ones that I have here. So same exact colors that I use there. They do have a lot more choices there. Again, you can see the snow, which I do have some of that. I just didn't bring it out, as well as the burnt and the high summer.
right, and this one, it looks like those quantities are very similar to what's in the smaller bag, and that one is at $14.99. And there again, with as little as it takes to actually work with, a little bit's gonna go a really, really, really long way.
Yeah, that's actually a really good price, especially when you look at that many.
It's actually
Colors.
one that I've been thinking about getting, just because the challenge that you find when you buy a lot of these is that you have to buy a bigger quantity and you pay quite a bit. I mean, that little bag that we have there, I believe we paid like $11 for.
Yeah, that
At
was
Hobby Lobby.
that was at a hobby store, and it was, I want to say it was $11 or $12
Yeah, and that's, I mean,
for that small of a bag.
so when you think about getting all of this wide range of colors that you can kind of play with, definitely give your hobby stores a look. But
So for one color, having a larger quantity of one color, spending a little bit more for a larger quantity of one color is great if you're painting like armies, if you want to have that consistent basing and everything. For me, I do not paint armies, so each of my miniatures that I paint, they're all individuals. Even when I'm doing dioramas and everything, I have a lot of diversity in the miniatures that I am painting. So I want to have a lot of different colors. So for me, a wider selection, smaller quantity is going to be more opportune for me. But your mileage may vary based on whatever you are doing.
Working with.
Yeah, whatever you're working on. If you've got a massive army that you want to have consistent bases on, yeah, then you want to stick with the same color, deeper quantity, and go deeper into it. But yeah, for the I'm going to real quick just do a little bit on this one here and kind of tie in. I want to do something really funky. I'm going to use the lighter green color, and I am going to pop a little bit onto this archway, because before we're done, I'm going to use a couple of different particulates on this one so you can see some size variation. So that is your small grass flock. You can see how small it is. Now, moving up in size on that, like I said, you can go into some massive sizes, and of course all different colors. So undergrowth is one that I use quite a bit, and this particulate is definitely a larger size. Overall, the bits of foam just are massive in comparison. And I got some brown of this one, but you can see the size variations of it compared to that small grass flocking.
so I will say the really interesting thing about that brown, you might put it up under the camera, the lid. So One thing to always keep in mind when you are looking for basing materials is you don't always have to go straight for something that says it's strictly for basing. That came out of the floral department at Michael's, I believe. And how much was it?
So that was $8.
So it's actually a really good deal for as much as there was there. I mean,
Yeah, a massive amount.
that's
massive
a
amount.
massive amount. I wish they would have had it in more colors, but it's the whole thought of don't limit yourself when you're looking at these kind of things. If you're not looking on Amazon, if you're at a craft store, make sure you're checking the floral department, because we have found a ton of different things that work really, really well in the floral department.
So process-wise, same exact thing. I'm going to put a little bit of glue down, and then because this is larger particulate, so this one here I like to use a tweezer, or just make sure I've got something that I can use to make sure that I get it where I want it to go. Because it's bigger sizes, you want to make sure that you are getting it right where you want it to go. So you can see when you get that onto a miniature, it's going to look like kind of scrub brush compared to the grass, right? This is more scrubby style stuff. And again, you can get this in multiple colors. I only just pulled out my brown because I had it super handy. But compared to the static grass, which you can see kind of behind that, it looks like fuller scrub brush. So another good way, if you're putting like elements of rock, you can put some of this around the rock and really have more of a scrub rather than grass.
In the green shades, it looks a lot like weeds too.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. And that same format, depending on what you're doing, you can get, like I said, in multiple colors and textures. So this here is actually on fiber. So is this. Now the product is the same size, but it's just on fiber. So you can see I've got a lot of fall colors and summer colors. And this product here, same exact particulate, except it's on fiber. So if you're doing things like trees, or you want to make brush or bushes, anything like that, because it's got this filler in here, you can really easily kind of shape
Manipulate it.
Yeah, manipulate it, get it around armature if you're doing trees, and it'll hold itself and give itself a lot more form. Now the fibers is just a polyfill fiber, and then it has the colored substrate on it. So it's the same stuff as the brown, but you can see from size, from our fine grass to the particulate, all of these flocks have a little bit of variation and have different ways to use in applying to your miniatures or
Yeah.
dioramas.
I believe those ones with the fiber, those are Scenic Naturals, aren't they?
Correct, yes.
And they come from Home Depot. And I believe they run about $6 a bag.
I don't know if you can get them at Home Depot.
Or not Home Depot, Hobby Lobby.
I
I knew what I meant, Hobby Lobby.
So yeah, I get mine at Hobby Lobby, but you can also get them at select game stores, as well as hobby stores like Train, RC, Airplane, things like that. But yeah, they are a fantastic product. I believe, again, the quantities that you get is just massive, because you can see it doesn't take very much. I mean, this is the one I've used the most because I've done 5 large dioramas, and look at how little I've used. I mean, the quantities are just insane comparatively, depending on what you're doing, how much you're using. But this one here, this fall kind of rust color, such a beautiful one for fall scenics. And yeah, I've hardly used any of that at all. It's a fantastic product and goes a long, long, long way. I'm going to pop a little bit of that onto, let's see, where do I want to pop some of this? I thought I had one more miniature ready to go, but I guess I did not. That's okay. That's okay. Oh, there it is. Would you hand me that tree? Okay, so this is just an armature that I have that I began working with. I have not finished it yet, but
It's
just
made out of floral wire.
yeah, just floral wire. But just so you can see process-wise how you would use this fiber fill product, I'm going to take and I put my white glue mix on one branch, and then I just manipulate this around and let it dry. And then I can actually use 50-50 glue and water and spray on top of it, and that'll help hold it in place. But you want to give this plenty of time to dry. Of course, with this, I don't know how it's going to go because I'm just applying it to the raw wire. Generally, this would have some finishing
Paint.
Sculpey and paint on it, right? So it would have a better chance to adhere rather than just the enameled wire. But we'll see. But basically, this is all you do. You take those fibers and you pop it on here, and then over a few applications, this just builds you out
Into an amazing
a
tree.
massive, yeah, beautiful tree in whatever color you want. If you want it summer, if you want it changing, you can use some of the green, you know, just very little bits, like on one side, and then this yellow and orange, and then the browns. And just lots of opportunity to really make it your own. And just an easy product to use. So that's all different types of flocking. And I am going to clean off my card here. Now the next product that I have is wood chips. So we're going to start here with wood chips. I'm going to just dump a couple of them out.
Now this is another interesting product that came out of the floral department. It's typically used for a filler, but great color. It's actual wood. Really easy to work with.
So some of the pros with this, would you hand me the Mantis Gray?
Mantis
Yep.
Gray?
So one of the pros with this is it's not too expensive for a good quantity, and you get quite a bit of product when you're purchasing something like this. So I use this quite a bit for as I'm basing along with cork. Cork tends to be a lot more expensive, and the biggest pro with these types of materials, whether you're going with wood or cork, is once you paint these, and whether you're going for more of a light brown sandstone, granite grays, however you paint the material, once you have it based and painted, you can do some dry brushing, and this is going to look just like rock. So it's a great way to have a rock base that's still pliable. So if you are pinning, for instance, a miniature, you can drill into this material and pin your miniature into the bark, or cork if you go either of those directions.
Now I will say this bark, I know this was $2.99. Again, we bought it in Michael's. So one of the things I love about Michael's is coupons. So we actually ended up getting this with a 40% off coupon, paid next to nothing for it.
Yeah, and so that's, I would say, for rating wise, I mean, as we talked about the static grass, I mean, static grass in and of itself, I give it a 5, especially that kit
Yes.
off Amazon. For the flocking, I will tell you, it can be a little more challenging to work with, but the results of it are fantastic.
So I actually prefer the flocking that is not got the fibers.
Right, and I am the same way. I actually am exactly the same way. Because I don't do a whole lot of trees and bushes and things like that, I actually prefer the individual particulates.
And I just gotta say, so I am newer to this, and this is something, this I actually did. It's the first thing that I've ever done with any kind of flocking, any kind of basing. I mean, it took me all of 10 minutes, and I am beyond pleased with how well that product worked. It gave me exactly the effect that I was looking for, of the little bits of moss and grass growing in between those stones. So yeah, big fan of the loose stuff because you can do so much.
So I have a lot of just small Tupperwares that I have a lot of that particulate in all different colors. So you can see this one's a blend. It's got greens, it's got pinks, it's got yellows, it's got all these different colors. And the reason for that is because when you are applying this onto a miniature, no, that one doesn't have anything on it. We'll put it with the orc. We want to have a festive orc. I'm going to put it right on this side. This is going to look like spring flowers. You're going to have some pinks, some yellows, and some greens. And so our orc has got some brown stuff there that he's standing on, and then some spring flowers. So on the table, this is going to look, I mean, just absolutely different than anybody else's miniature. So the particulates, I'm exactly with you. I would say I would rate them higher if they all came individual, though I understand they have their
building a tree,
their places.
Fiber is good.
Yeah, but I am the same way. I prefer all of my flocking to be individual. Now this style here, this is also purchased the same exact way, where it just came in bags. However, I shared it and I kept what I felt I would need over a 1-year period in these little Tupperwares. I can tell you, I've had this for 5 years. I have never gotten through all of it on any of my colors. So a little, again, depending on application,
right,
can go a long way. For me, you can see when I use mine is very sparingly. I don't use it for more than just accenting a miniature when I want to convey something. So for me, the amount that you get for, generally, I think for this one here we paid $9.99 per color. It seems to be a lot, but the value is definitely there because I have not had to purchase any more of this.
Right.
For ages, for absolute
somebody
ages.
That's working on minis or dioramas that aren't like huge dioramas, it's definitely a reasonable price.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. The different styles of flocking that you can get also have one big thing. So I tend to use a lot of materials that I collect, so mosses and wood chips and chunks and sticks and twigs and dirts and things like that. I can say the pro on all of these materials, now they are not free, where you can go out and pull up spoonfuls of dirt and grab some stuff off trees and out of the park and things like that. The challenges with that is they can have different organisms in them. So you have to worry about mold. You do have to worry about things that could be dangerous down the road. They could have adverse effects with smells.
Or they could have
an
adverse effect on the miniature.
Yeah, they could have bugs with them. So one of the pros with this, going with the synthetic route, is that that you're not going to have to contend with anything like that. So for that peace of mind alone, I actually find a lot of value in these. While I still do love to put some elements that are realistic and live and everything, the peace of mind when I'm doing any type of a commission work specifically,
I'm bringing out the big thing.
in knowing that I don't have to, worry about bugs or mold or rot or anything like that. It really is nice, just from an artist's point of view, to have that peace of mind. So this one here has gone through a couple of moves, but it could show. There you can see that moss there. See how quick and easy that was? Just looks fantastic. So this is a diorama that actually got broke quite a bit. So it is not in great shape.
No, but it's a fantastic use of those products. It was so beautiful.
So you can see the climbing vines. That was all done with flock. And then in the flower beds, there are
Actual flowers.
flowers in there. And then
A blooming tree that,
the tree has it got crushed.
well, I think it got catted.
Yeah, crushed via cats. But yeah, you can see a little bit of particulate in the now dry fountain. The creeping vines, all the flowers in the flower beds. Now this did not get fully completed because I was going to do some of the static grass in there as well. But again, moves happen.
But it's a really cool piece to kind of show
Yeah, that
some
kind
of
of.
the possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And the variations that you can get just with different colors and everything. So this was just a diorama that I was working with for display to do some photography with. And yeah, I think overall the flocking, if you were to see this without the flocking and just the painting, it's a completely different
Yes.
item. So flocking.
Well, there again, that's looking at the one gateway versus the other.
Right.
Where?
Let's see if we can do. So this is the. It's not going to be great, but the goal was, if you were to do some photography and have miniatures, like looking through the door or down in the garden, that you would have a fantastic background. And so overall, I think we definitely have some repairs and everything to do with it, but it did a great job. I mean, it really looks pretty good for just miniature photography.
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to get somewhat of a measure of realism from just adding those little tiny elements is an amazing thing.
Yeah, very much.
I know you didn't want me to bring that out, but
No, I did not, because it's not.
because
it's not in pristine
he
condition.
has a perfection thing.
As an artist,
But
I am a perfectionist.
The usage on it is absolutely beautiful, and it definitely something to look at and something to see.
So overall, I would say the substrates that we looked at, I mean, definitely I view them as very high in both quality as well as value for dollar, whether you're finding them at Amazon or via hobby shops, craft shops. Like Tammy said, some of the items we found in floral departments, some we found in miniature departments, some we found at hobby shops specializing in RC and train, and then Amazon as well. So lots of different ways to find the materials.
I would very much say my recommendation would be to utilize things like looking in the unusual areas and places like Amazon, though. I mean, for bang for your buck, that's going to be better than going to a hobby shop that, I mean, the honest to goodness truth is, I want to support those hobby shops and everything, but there's a very specific customer there that likes to spend more, I guess. I mean, they're doing giant things, and so in some cases, you are better off to expand your horizons and look a little bit wider than what you normally would.
Yeah, I would say definitely, rather than going to a craft store like a Michael's or Hobby Lobby or anything like that, I would say my first preference would be to recommend people check out their local gaming store and see if they have the items. Just know that you will be paying a higher price, but it's in support of your local game shop.
Yes.
So that's where I would say the like local opportunity is. If you're not as concerned about your budget or you really want to give that community support. Otherwise, I agree. Amazon, the items we've found on Amazon and purchased have blown my mind. The volumes, the quality, and the pricing has been absolutely
Amazing.
5-star. So for basing materials, I definitely rate Amazon and the items we found on Amazon at a 5-star. For our craft stores, I give them a 3-star just because of the pricing being so high for such small amounts.
Not only that, but I mean, you're still getting that big box. They've got the volume discounts and whatnot. For the dollars, you will pay about the same at a hobby store as what you would at a Michael's or a Hobby Lobby. And if you can go local, go local.
Right. And then for the local shops, the challenge I have there, I have to rate that currently I have to rate that at a 2, just because where we've been challenged with things like COVID, many places have not been open, their supplies have been down, they've not been able to get a lot of the assortment or as wide of an assortment. I know that is something that will rebound, so I'm hoping that continues to improve. I hope that people check out their local game shops and really ask and talk about having them order items that they may need, so that it just really guides them on items to stock and supply.
Yes.
But I know that would be very different if we had not just come out of the pandemic.
Hopefully we're out of the pandemic.
I believe that that's going to continue getting better and better and better with time. But yeah, basing materials, an important aspect for tabletop role-playing gaming. If you want to elevate your tabletop style, if you want to elevate your miniatures, if you're working on miniature painting and doing things like exchanges or contests or any type of entries, you want to step them up to the next level, look at your basing supplies. Because with basing supplies, the amount that you spend is going to give you an amazing return on investment. When you pop like this Orc Barbarian with the floral base, I mean, just absolutely comparatively, you put that down on the table and it is going to be something that people are talking about. So don't hesitate. Check out all of your basing materials. I highly recommend the items that we've talked about. And I think that's all we've got to cover for today. So it looks like we saved you a little bit of time. Not a whole ton. Apologies, but we have this show for an hour. Looks like we're going to end about 10 minutes early. I hope it was insightful and informative. I hope that the ratings, if you've got experience on the same materials, you would agree. And make sure to check out our other shows. Of course, tomorrow I'll be live in the studio painting at noon. If you have questions on basing, I'd love to talk to you more about them then. Otherwise, have a fantastic weekend. I know it's just the beginning. Make sure you enjoy yourselves, stay safe. And from Tammy and myself here at Green Oaks Gaming, have a fantastic weekend and let us know where will your adventures take you.